Now for episode 2 of Dustin Goes Car Shopping. And as you might remember from the first one, the RCF Final Edition did not make the cut next to the 911 Carrera S. However, at my work, Performance Lexus, another special Lexus got traded in that has some of those qualities that I'm looking for. And that special car is the IS 500. And remember, I'm not just looking for a car that can do one thing. I'm looking for a car that checks multiple boxes. It has to be good for road trips. It has to be fun to drive. It has to be unique. It has to be reliable. I want it to hold value. There's all of these things that is sort of going there. And seeing this car get traded in really caught my eye that it's worth exploring before I even get to something like the LC. And if you like this video, make sure you hit like and subscribe and comment below if there's any other cars that I should be looking at in my shopping journey. And don't forget, I also have another channel called Performance Lexus where I do all things Lexus related. Okay, let's compare color really quick. So this color is called Ultrasonic Blue 2.0. The reason that's so special is ultrasonic was first introduced when the era of ISF and LFA was announced and kind of came into fruition. That was the first version of this color, and since then it's only gotten better. I know it's a little dirty right now because I was literally scrambling to get this car in here before it sells. Now, this color versus the Carrera S Aventurine Green. So when I think of both of them, they're both unique for sure. The blue is gonna be flashier, there's no doubt about it. It's a little bit more bright when the sun hits it. At nighttime, it looks super purplish and dark like that, where the 911 Aventurine Green is just screaming that old money look. And that's something I loved about that color combination. But it doesn't mean that I don't love this. In fact, I used to call this Dustin Blue because my whole family knows I love blue so much. In fact, I didn't even know I was filming this video today and I'm wearing a few different colors of blue. It matches my eyes. And I always like that about this car. It also reminds me of another special car we had here years ago, who a friend of mine named Joseph, let's just call him Joseph, bought, and that was a GSF. And it reminds me of the IS 500 because that too was a really cool, sleek sedan. We need to talk about what's under the hood. So under the hood of this is what makes it special. This is not your typical IS that you see on the road, the IS 300s, the 350s, although it looks a lot like it. Under the hood here, we have a 5-liter V8, similar to the RCF, similar to the LC, with close to 470 horsepower. What I read the other day is what made this catch my attention. And that was this article that was fed to me on my Google page, and it said, Lexus might be one of the last brands offering a snarling V8. And I was like, whoa. In the world of turbos and flat sixes and all these other things, is this one of the last cars with a snarling V8? Especially from, you know, a Japanese manufacturer like Lexus? And that stuck out to me because yes, the 911 has that flat 6 turbo. There's a lot of 6 turbos out there right now. There's not a lot of V8s out there. And it might be with the way emissions are going, that might be, you know, something to hold on to. So that's something to think about. I should mention, it is slower than the 911. So this car does a quarter mile in like high 12s. I think it's like 12.7. Its 0 to 60 time is more like 4.7 or 4.8, something like that. Someone's gonna fact check me there. So it means it definitely is slower than the 911, but still, it's still nothing to mess around with. Let's talk about styling a little bit. So I don't know if you can see in the hood. The hood itself, yes, it has the normal swoop that all ISs have, but there's another defined line sort of right there. I call it like, it's like, you know when you like frown at someone, it's kind of like those lines on your forehead or my forehead as I get aged and forget to moisturize. That is what the front of that IS 500 has. We have a triple beam LED headlight setup with a really sleek daytime running light that looks super modern, but also very recognizable for the Lexus brand. As you saw there, the signals are just above that. They're actually not LED, which is surprising. They're actually less sharp than I remembered. We have our headlight washers there. We have some active aero in the bumper. We have a front-facing parking camera, so we have some luxuries there. Let me show you the side profile. So I know the RCF didn't make the cut, but this side profile is actually less special than the RCF. It still has a unique wheel that only came on the IS 500. It's still got a decent brake setup. Now, versus the 911 and And the RCF, it's maybe a little bit less exciting, but still very practical. You know, we have just a typical 5-bolt pattern there, so you could rock winters. It's a very manageable size where you could go down to, you know, it's a 19 on there now, but there's plenty of room. Bet you could go down to an 18 for a winter setup if you needed to drive this here all year round. It does say F Sport, it's not a true F, so it doesn't have that. However, it does have a black lip kit. It's small, it does have a black lip kit. It does have some black toe mirror caps. You'll notice there's an extra set of doors versus the other two cars we've compared already. So it is a sedan. However, the IS was designed actually to be more of a coupe with 4 doors. So the back seat is not very large. Another thing is, I'm actually coming from an IS. So I drove an IS for most of this year as my daily, an IS 300. So I feel very familiar with this car in terms of size and getting in and out of it, because those are two things that the car does share with the 300. Let's move to the back. So the back, as you can see, has that very modern taillight. In fact, usually when I see a taillight like that, it reminds me more of that 992 Carrera S Porsche, less of the RCF and more of this reminds me of that brand of Porsche. We have a tiny little black spoiler. We have a very usable trunk, which I'm almost nervous to open up and see. Yep. Just making sure there's nothing in there. Probably the most practical part about this, which is making me think, but do I want practical? I don't know. I don't know if I'm looking for that practical, but it's there. We have the stacked quad exhaust. So that's a very famous Lexus V8 type characteristic. So when people are behind you, you can tell that it's got the V8. And of course, it's got that V8 sound. Okay, so getting into the interior, this feels very familiar to me. Also, we gotta talk about the red. So the blue on red is one of the coolest color combinations in a world of black interiors and black exteriors, which is usually the cars I drive. Having the red is a breath of fresh air. Having the blue on red is an even bigger breath of fresh air. It's like when you fill up your lungs and then you fill them up again, that's what this color combo is like. I will say seating position wise, the 911 is so much better because I feel like I'm on top of this front axle right now versus that really low, very back 911 stance, which is something I really liked. I thought it was cool. I think it's like a really cool driving position, but this feels very familiar and there's something to be said about that too. So a couple things, we do have a really nice physical shifter. The 911 just had like a little toggle switch. So this is kind of like the RCF in that. The thing is, I always try to find out where to put my phone in the IS, but a lot of times I just leave it there and I just plug it in for the wired CarPlay and Android Auto, or I plug it in and put it in the center. The Lexus multimedia system works nice because it's very integrated into the wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but it still also has some maps on certain years of these things. So, you know, for instance, when I lost service in the mountains, I could switch over to the navigation screen and just look at it there. It does have one of the nicest Mark Levinson sound systems in the Lexus lineup. The IS, when it got redesigned back in like 2021 or 2020, whatever year it was, they advertised like a 1500 watt system and they delivered on that. And that's something like the 911 has the Bose system, which is not the fully loaded system, but this one is. And it is very crisp for like people who are into audio. So that's pretty cool. We have the trackpad and a touchscreen, so you can work that radio 2 ways. It does still have a CD player, which the only good thing about that is I've seen some like phone holders that clip into that so that you can have like another phone holder. We got different drive modes. We have Eco, Normal, Custom, Sport, and Sport Plus. Pretty much that's the same as the 911. The only difference is the exhaust stays the same between Sport and Sport Plus. We also have a snow mode. So there's no sensors in the wheel wells like there is on the 911 for things like different traction situations, etc. However, there is a button you could just override and do snow mode. And I think the Lexus Safety Sense does some of that thinking too. So when it uses that camera, it'll actually see things, you know, on the road and know if it's in a snow or rain situation. Heated and cooled seats, so very comfortable for that. Driving safety features, this actually beats the 911 because this has radar cruise control and lane departure alert. The 911 that we are comparing it to does not have those two things. However, the cruise controls work very similarly. It just depends if someone wants those sorts of things. I mean, for road trips, it is nice to have radar cruise control and lane departure alert. especially if you're gonna be driving a lot, like I plan to. What else? We have that cool Lexus clock. Both cars have that. I do really like that. I mean, the 911 has a lot of heritage and homage to the heritage, but this one has the LFA display. So when you press one of the buttons on the steering wheel, it moves physically the gauge cluster over, which I really like. And of course, a main part is just, that engine is so good. This is a very powerful, very reliable, very smooth V8. It sounds good, it feels athletic. It is tough, but I think I've just realized something. I just realized that one of the cars I'm replacing is a V8 sedan. And I'm just thinking that as much as I love this IS 500, I think it's gonna be too close to the LS. And yes, the LS was heavier and more luxurious and bigger and more of that like executive sedan take. And yeah, this is gonna feel more athletic. I've driven many of these and there is that extra torque, there's that extra handling from it being an IS, and that is fun, and I could probably daily this car all year round with the right tires. But I just think because of what I'm looking for, I'm gonna give it to the 911. I think the LC is gonna be a closer comparison. I think that's gonna check a lot of the boxes that this one has and the 911 doesn't. But I think for this one, it is too close to the LS that I'm getting rid of. So we gotta give it to the 911. So there you have it, another comparison of Dustin car shopping. I am a Lexus guy, so it kind of hurts me to like, you know, not choose the Lexus product. That could just be because I've worked here for so long and like I get to drive all these cars anyway, and I don't get to drive the 911, I don't know. So let me know in the comments below what you think of this series, what car you think I should be putting on my radar, and also just any other video ideas that you might have. And always go check out our other channel called Performance Lexus.